Monsieur le Président de Paris Europlace, cher Gérard.
Honorable President of Paris Europlace, dear Gérard, Honorable Minister, Madame Royale, Honorable Governor, Mr. Nouy, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm really glad to be here with you today. I'm going to do what a French Prime Minister shouldn't do, especially when he speaks in French. I'm going to make a speech in English. Not a whole speech, just a part of a speech. First, because it's not going to be easy for me, since my English has gotten rusty. And secondly, because it's not going to be easy for you either, for the same reason. The message I want to share with you is clear and it's simple. The French government is committed to boost Paris' attractiveness by all means. We want Paris to become Europe's new #1 financial hub after Brexit. To that end, we have prepared a bold and comprehensive package to enhance the standing of Paris, building on our assets and on our central position in Europe. This package is powerful. It addresses taxation, labor law, the business-friendly environment, and also international schools. Our goal is to send a strong signal to the world business community. Paris is ready, and France is back. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's back to French.
My grandmother knew nothing about finance, but she had common sense. I'm not saying it's incompatible. Anyway, my grandmother used to say that the shortest speeches were the ones that were less long. The attractiveness of Paris is an objective. Let's be clear about this. The attractiveness cannot be just decided upon. It has to be demonstrated. And we must convince you of that. And our objective is to convince you, and that is how we're going to make things happen. How do we intend to convince you of it? Well, first, we have to be aware that the policy that will promote the attractiveness of the Paris marketplace can only have an impact if it goes beyond partisan beliefs, which is why last Friday I announced a string of measures. Some of you may have made a note of them, and I have chosen to do that in continuation with the work done by my predecessors, with Madame the Mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, with Patrick Ollier, the chairman of the Greater Paris Area, and with the chairperson of the regional administration, Valérie Pécresse. In order to make our territory attractive, in order to have such an attractiveness policy, we need to not dwell in partisan bickering. And I would like to thank those who've understood that what is at stake is the general interest and who've joined in these efforts. Also, we need to be aware that developing the attractiveness of the Paris marketplace calls for a global vision, an all-inclusive vision. We have to go beyond mere aspects of cost and tax, although cost and tax, notably labor cost, are serious and must lead to responses and even solutions. Attractiveness has to do with the cost of labor. It has to do with labor laws, and it has to do with quality of life, the ability to school children in good conditions, and it has to do with being connected with the best marketplaces worldwide, financial marketplaces. So attractiveness has to do with quality of life, culture, a way of being, settling and in Paris and working in Paris is not the same as settling and working in London or in Frankfurt, and it's not the same thing to eat in London, in Paris, or in Frankfurt. Read my lips. Or to go out in Paris, London, or Frankfurt, or to get health care in Paris, London, or Frankfurt. And yet, all these elements that I've mentioned have to be taken into account, and we have to bear all that in mind at the same time. Finally, the last demand that we've set upon ourselves is to stop thinking that we would start from scratch. And as soon as a new government is appointed, it will come up with a barren territory in which it will have to chart its own maps. We are not starting from scratch, neither in our strengths nor in the possible obstacles that we have yet to overcome. A word about our strengths, because they are indeed genuine and they are of significance. First of all, there is the combination of a training system, which in your field no longer needs to extol its virtues. The system trains high-level, professional, well-trained, qualified men and women who often leave France to go work abroad, although they were ready to stay in France. And they are prepared to take part in this attractiveness effort. Also, there's a whole ecosystem that lends itself to the performance of the Paris marketplace, with regulators, infrastructure, with good connection on the economy and industry. We are not simply a financial center in Paris. We can become a more powerful one, but we are also an economic capital, and we are a production capital, and obviously this has to be pointed out as often as possible. I could also mention non-financial assets of France. That would be a very long list, and you are hungry. Therefore, I would like to move on and briefly, I promise, speak about the measures that we have committed to, the implementation of which should enable us to confidently envision the attractiveness of the Paris marketplace. And yet, I'd like to say one more word, because the French may not immediately grasp what is at stake with the development of the attractiveness of the Paris marketplace. Some French people may believe that if you develop financial attractiveness, the government would merely speak to financiers. It is my conviction, and I'm sure that you share it with me, that developing the financial attractiveness of our country means developing the economic attractiveness. It has to do with taking part in the economic development of our country. It's about creating wealth, creating jobs. It's about creating something that will be beneficial to all. And when it comes to attractiveness, I don't want to pit the financial industry with its rules and features against the rest of the economy, which obviously benefits from the development of attractiveness, including financial attractiveness. The path we have chosen is a tax, legal path when it comes to labor laws, and it's a cross-cutting path. Regarding tax, we shall do away with the final tranche of the payroll tax in order to focus on most qualified jobs. We shall do away with the extension of the base on the French TTF that was voted somewhat hastily against the opinion of the government last year, the beginning of the year. We are going to shortly implement the cancellation of the tax on wealth, to change that into a property wealth tax, which will release capital, the capital of investors who invest in securities. And also we're looking at a savings taxation, which will be simplified thanks to a single levy of around 30% on savings income. This should lead us up until 2022, and we should reach 25% in 2022. So these measures are in the French Loi de Finances. Some of them will be applicable in 2018. Other measures will be applicable in the Loi de Finances at the end of 2017. And this will give all the players, mark my words, all players, visibility on the path that we're going to follow in the coming years. More than the amount of tax, more than the actual rates, volatility, instability, the unpredictability of tax measures is an obstacle that we have to overcome, and that is the purpose of the draft law that will be voted at the end of the year. It will enable you and economic players, financial and economic players, to see better, to predict better, to take knowledgeable decisions, and help you understand that it's best to stay in France. Beyond these tax measures that are of consequential measure, and that shall be described in great detail very shortly, we have found it essential to clarify and simplify, in some respects, French labor laws, which had become complex, so complex that the actual purpose was lost. The actual purpose is to organize good labor relations, to protect the employees. Labor laws no longer protected employees, and labor relations had been impeded, hindered. French labor laws had become a genuine obstacle. So a number of measures are specific to the financial sector, notably the exclusion of the deferred bonuses from the criteria on which their severance pay is calculated. The scope of that commitment was already explained to you. So above the reform of the labor law, which will kick in by the end of the summer, I'm saying so because the President of the Republic committed during his campaign to alter labor laws, so he has committed to an objective as well as to a process. The process has to do with ordinances, executive orders, and as I say, this shall be done by the end of the summer. So the end of the summer, ladies and gentlemen, is on the 21st of September this year. What should happen is going to happen by the end of the summer, by September 21st. If I may, I'd like to say a word about measures that are not specifically tax or labor related, but that are nevertheless very important. I mentioned them a moment ago. In consultation with the Paris Regional Administration, the state is going to implement an action plan to develop international high schools, 3 international high schools in the Paris region, and international sections, in addition to the measures that the government has chosen to adopt when it comes to the development of language teaching and bilingual classes in junior high schools. Foreign languages have not always been the forte of France. I just gave you an illustration a few moments ago. I'm speaking on my behalf only, right? Not Gérard. Speaking of me, not you, Gérard. But these measures are not only aimed at helping young French people master foreign languages. Those who come to study in France should offer, to work in France, should help their children enjoy high-quality French education and go back to areas where there would not necessarily be education in France. Therefore, their children must be educated in several languages. It's essential. Sometimes I tend to think it's more important. I think it's sometimes more important than tax, because whatever the position you have in finance, whatever the attachment you have to the assets you manage, often your assets are close to you, your children. And you consider those assets with even more attention than financial assets, and that's a good thing. And that's the way it should be everywhere. There's, over there, somebody, there's a father or a mom, right? Quite a few dads and moms in attendance here. We're developing the attractiveness of the legal marketplace in France, a good system that can accommodate a financial system means good regulation. It means the ability to settle litigation fast and efficiently. Based on a number of recommendations made recently, we're going to specialize one of the chambers of the Court of Appeal of Paris, or we're going to create a special chamber in the Court of Appeal of Paris so that all these issues that have to do with differences or disputes and litigations may be settled in better conditions and faster with great expertise. Another objective, we wish to eliminate the adverse effect of the way we adopt European directives. I'm not being critical of what has been done. Over-transposition is a French problem. We don't want to be harsher than the European directives. We have to come back to the European standard, which governs the circumstances under which competition can take place. And competing with other financial marketplaces without belaboring the point is indeed a laudable challenge. Now, transportation, connection with other financial marketplaces is of the essence. You know, the Charles de Gaulle Express, indispensable project. It's indispensable in more regards than one. We're very happy with the progress made, and we shall make every effort to make it materialize under good circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to stress the fact that the policy I've briefly and yet garrulously exposed may not just boil down to announcements and measures. When you wish to transform reality, whether it be in corporations or in regions or in states, you have to act consistently and steadily. The path we've chosen, which was adopted by some of our predecessors, is a path that we're committing to with great resolve. This is the path that was given to us by the President of the Republic. In order to reach our goal, we have to stick to the course we've set, so we shall be steadfast in holding the course. We want to strengthen the attractiveness of the Paris marketplace. We want financial players, both French and non-French, to come or come back to Paris. We want to create jobs, create wealth, and see to it that Paris, the Paris region, and France at large will be better off tomorrow than it is today. Major challenge for us, major challenge for you. We are determined to take up that challenge. Thank you very much.